Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the next installment of Modern Athlete Live, brought to you by Traumeel, your reliable running partner. You'll see their wonderful branding behind me. We've actually received new branding for this series, and I'm really chuffed to have it put up this in the studio here at home in Stellenbosch. And joining us tonight, Craig Gornall of the Running High store in Bedfordview, Johannesburg. Craig, first of all, good evening. Nice to see you again.
Good evening, Sean. Nice to be in contact with you again. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've known each other for, I don't know, it must be 20 odd years in the running industry. We've hung out at lots of expos together, but of course, opposite ends of the country. So let's first of all, let's start off by telling the people who you are and where you fit into the running picture.
Okay, so I started off as a qualified podiatrist, and when I was in podiatry, I also did work for Adidas, and that's where we came across each other at the Comrades Expos and things like that. So that's now 24 years ago, from what I can remember. And yeah, from there, just the passion for running and the running industry grew. And with that, left podiatry and went into the wonderful world of running shoes.
Well, of course, the reason we've got Craig on the MA Live today is that with this series being all about learning to run well, we want to talk about what a person needs to know when buying running shoes. Now, there are some people who have been running for many years and they know exactly what they're looking for, or they know which brand works for them. But every year we have lots of people coming into the sport and they have no idea where to start. And that's why we called up Craig and said, can we discuss shoes, the beginner's guide to what you need to know about buying shoes? So first things first, you have a running store in Bedfordview. Tell us about that, please.
Okay, so I've been I was with Sweatshop for numerous years, and going on 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to take over the store in Bedfordview, and yeah, took it over and having a wonderful time serving the customers and carrying on. So yeah, we generally, what we do is we get you into a shoe, watch you running either on the treadmill or outside in our passageway, and have a couple of laughs, and yeah, advise on whether you should be neutral, stability, yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, I'm going to get my list of questions in front of me and kick off with my first question. Given the number of years you've been selling running shoes, I'm sure you've seen every type of runner and every type of biomechanics come through your store. What stands out for you about the SA running market in terms of the common needs and the common questions you pick up?
So what I've noticed very commonly for us is the width of the shoe tends to be a big issue, specifically in South Africa. If you look at your Scandinavian feet and things like that, they generally got long, skinny feet. Locally, a bit shorter, a bit wider, and that can play quite an important problem when it comes to trying to get the right sort of fit in the shoes. And our local runners tend to be very loyal to their brand, and they don't like the changes in the models that much. You know, they'll come in this year and go, oh no, but I want the same shoe I ran in 2 years ago. And you go, but it's updated since then. And they're like, no, I want that shoe. Can't you get it for me? So that's quite a challenge sometimes. But yeah, it's all part of the fun.
You know, I jump in there with the sense that I've been writing shoe reviews for just over 20 years as well. And I've often had people come to me and say, yes, but I loved let's say the Mark 16 of that particular shoe. And now the 17 or the 18 or the 19 doesn't really work for me. Can't I just get the 16? And I say, no, fair enough. You know, you might think that the 17 or 18 is a bit different and it's not quite the same shoe for you. But think back to the Mark 9 or the Mark 7 and the Mark 2 that you may have run in 15 years ago. And would you really want to go back to the old technology, the old designs? And they go, no, I see your point. So I think people need to understand that things constantly evolve. There again, I think you've seen shoes change massively over the years.
Oh, like you cannot believe, from hard midsoles to soft midsoles to going barefoot to now the maximalist move to carbon plates, TPU plates, all the fun sides of it. Yeah, there's been so many changes, and I keep saying to people at the moment, it's very exciting in the running industry, specifically with these super foams that are coming out, and the carbon plates, and where shoes are going. It's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen the same thing from my perspective. So a person walks into your store and says he or she wants to start running on the road, doing, let's say, 5 to 10 kilometers, maybe building up to their first half marathon. What kind of advice do you give them for buying that first pair of running shoes?
So for us, the big thing is you've got to be really comfortable in the shoe. So as I said earlier, we get you into a neutral shoe, watch you running, see what sort of support base you need. And then from there, we start saying, okay, you need a wider shoe, narrower shoe. And then we start looking at the fit. When you start looking, someone with a slightly flatter foot, lower arch, generally there you're looking for something that's a little bit wider in that midfoot. And, you know, then the higher arch, you can get away with something that's a little bit more curved. You also want to, obviously, those 5 to 21K guys who are just starting out, they often look at the shoe because we would go a size bigger generally. Or the general rule of thumb is a thumb's width between your longest toe and the end of the shoe. And when you do that, they're going, but no, this is too big for me. I can't run like this. And you try and then explain and go, okay, well, you've got to have the fit. You've got to have the space there because your feet do move, they do swell. And yeah, then it really comes down to comfort. Does it fit you properly around the ball of the foot? Can you pinch a little bit of the toe box area? No pressure points anywhere. And comfort is really a big thing. And it's very interesting where a lot of people tend to, if I'm watching them and the shoe they feel the most comfortable in is quite often the one that gives them the best support and looks the best. So it's almost as if your body knows that's my general route of movement and that's what's going to work for me. So yeah.
That very much is about not just what the tech is, but what feels good on the foot.
Yeah.
So now, you and I both know what pronation is, and overpronation, supination, underpronation, all the different technology and terminology. But for somebody who's walking in, how do you explain pronation to them, and how do you make sure that they're in the right shoe? So
pronation obviously is, firstly, normal pronation is your body's natural way of absorbing shock. So you don't want to stop that altogether. But essentially your pronation is your inward roll of your foot. To give you an example, if you're looking at the shoe here, so that would be your outside of your shoe, that's your inside. And if you start rolling in excessively and you're getting that angle at the Achilles tendon, that's generally showing excessive pronation. And that's really where things start becoming a bit difficult. The excessive supination, which is obviously the rolling out, that there's not too much we can do for that. That's normally a more rigid foot. And there you start looking at just trying to cushion the foot as much as possible. Whereas with that pronation, that excessive pronation, we then start trying to support the arch, try and control that movement to a certain degree. But as I said earlier, we don't want to stop it altogether because it is your body's natural function.
So to slow the rate of pronation versus stop it, again, you and I understand this, but I'd like to explain it for readers and viewers. You have an anti-pronation support mechanism, often a medial post, which is in the heel area, which is to slow that rate. Explain how that works for the runner's foot.
So unfortunately, I don't have any stability shoes with me, but essentially, when you're looking at the inside of your shoe, you would have a firmer insert that's usually in that arch area there. And that firmer insert, with it being firm on the inside, as soon as your foot comes down onto it, it almost pushes back up against the foot. Recently, there's been a move away from that traditional hard insert into what they call more of a guidance type of support. So it flows smoother. You don't have this invasive block pushing into your arch, and it sort of just guides you through that normal gait cycle. And yeah, it's, as I say, that the changes from these traditional posts, which are heavy and hard, to this guidance is quite exciting, because you get guys doing comrades who can now be a neutral runner, running a shoe like this. And when you start getting to that 60, 70 Ks in the race and you fatigue, you've got that little bit of support there, which helps you out tremendously.
Sure. Still sticking with the traditional types of shoes, you spoke about neutral shoes, you spoke about stability. Just go through the sort of the different types of shoes in broad spectrum that runners can choose from.
Okay, so as we said, neutral stability. Within the stability realm, you've got a light stability, a medium stability, and then generally what they used to be called as a motion control shoe. And those motion control shoes, I'm sure as you and I know, were like bricks. You could not bend them. They were as heavy as anything. And that thing obviously controls with different levels of excessive pronation. From there, you get your lighter weight shoes, which are your racer trainers, and they generally aimed at doing your speed work sessions, your tempo runs, and then you would look at your racing shoes. The racing shoes, from when you and I started running, where you had this 10 mils of midsole under your foot, are now 30 to 40 mils of midsole with carbon plates and all of this technology, which is really, really nice and really good, provided you can maintain your form as you fatigue later in the race.
So I'm going to ask you a related question, if you don't mind. We've been through the minimalist and maximalist phases. You said that yourself, and now we're going into the plated area, and everybody wants a plated shoe. Now, first of all, what do the plates do? And secondly, is it true that you literally have to learn to run slightly differently in a plated shoe?
So the plate is there, and depending on the brand, depending on the shoe, depends on how the shape. I don't know if you can see the sort of break in the midsole here. So in this particular shoe, we've got a TPU plate, which runs there. And generally in the forefoot, you get this almost spoon shape to it. And what that does is, as you then start pushing down on your toes, it lifts the heel up. And by doing that, it takes away a lot of that muscle activity that you have in your calves and your posterior chain, making you that little bit more efficient. Now, a lot of people look at that and go, is the shoe going to make me run 2 minutes a K faster? No, the shoe's not going to make you run 2 minutes a K faster. But what it will do is it will allow you to run at your normal race pace for just that much further. And with that, you end up running quicker times and things like that.
So in a nutshell, it's elasticity and propulsion of the shoe, which saves you energy, and then that means you can race at top speed for longer.
Exactly.
Okay. Well,
you add that into the newer midsole materials that have got this high rebound and everything. So with every step, they're actually rebounding quicker, pushing you that little bit. Your stride length tends to increase without you physically doing it.
Okay.
That also makes it that a little bit faster.
And I see that some brands have also got what they call rocker soles, which means that if I understand correctly, the whole underside of the shoe is rounder, so it rocks more, and it also speeds up the propulsion forwards.
Correct. So like this particular model from Saucony, you can see as you hit that forefoot, how it rolls up quite aggressively. Now, this one hasn't got a plate in it, but it gives you that same sort of function, but in more of a training shoe. Because the big thing with the plated shoes and the rocket shoes is as you're rolling like forward that quicker movement, it puts a lot more strain onto your quads and your anterior side. So a lot of people need to get used to that. And you might find initially you'll get a little bit of knee pain here and there, just because now your quads are working a little bit harder to slow down that forward momentum that you're getting from the shoe. So that comes back down to your question of, do you need to learn how to run in the shoe? I wouldn't say you need to learn how to run in the shoe, but you need to adjust to the shoe.
Okay, fair enough.
The real soft midsole racing shoes, those tend to, and that's where I said if you can maintain your form, they're good. Because a lot of them, as you sit back, as you get tired, they're so soft that you tend to go and wobble all over the shoe. And then getting onto the toes is just that little bit more work again. So that's maintaining your form properly, and then it's fine.
So on that, I just want to tie into that. We've spoken about runners who come into your store and say, I'm going to start running, I'm doing 5 to 10 Ks, maybe up moving up to a half marathon. So what happens though when people are now going from a half marathon up to marathons or ultras? And you and I both know the Comrades Marathon and the Two Oceans Marathon are such big aspirational events in this country. So now the people are looking for, is it what, more shoe? Do they need something different?
I wouldn't say you need something different, but as soon as you start going further, you must just be aware that your feet are going to swell up that little bit more. So you need to just allow for a little bit more space in the shoe. As I was saying earlier with the Comrades guys, as you fatigue, your feet do tend to collapse a little bit more. So you won't necessarily want a softer shoe, but you also don't want a shoe that's terribly hard. So you want that nice, happy medium of a shoe that's going to give you the cushioning, give you the right support base, and isn't going to be too soft that you wobbling or going all over the show as you fatigue. You know, it's going to let you maintain your form.
Sure.
And yeah.
Okay.
Then obviously the guys who are wanting to chase those times, those are the ones that you start looking at and going, okay, now let's start looking at a specific race day shoe where you can then target those times for you.
Okay. My next question is with the proverbial $1 million question, is that people always speculate that what kind of mileage do you get out of a pair of running shoes? And I stress, we are speaking averages here. There are no guarantees. One shoe could last a lot longer than others purely by chance and with your biomechanics. But what is it? What do you get as a norm in the industry? And how do runners know when it's time to replace their shoes?
So your general norm is anywhere from 600 to 800 Ks on a pair of shoes nowadays. Some people, as you say, I've got customers who manage to eke out 1,500 Ks on shoes. And I still don't know how they do it. Maybe they're just lying on their Strava stats. But generally, a good way to test it is you start palpating your foams, and if the shoe is feeling a lot softer and a lot more flexible and twisty than it used to be when it was new, that's a good indication. If you start picking up little niggles in your knees, your quads, your hips that you don't normally get, that's another indication that your shoes are on their way out. Or else, if you're unsure, take your shoes to your local running specialist and let them have a look at the shoes. I know a lot of people will look at that and go, well, you're just going to tell me to buy a new pair of shoes because you want to make a sale. But your reliable running specialists aren't going to do that because they're there to give you the right advice. They're there for the love of running, not for making money.
Well, I can tell you from experience, I've had people come to me and say, I'm starting to get slightly sore knees and I'm not sure if my shoes are worn out. Can you give me some help? So I say, sure, let me have a look at your current running shoes. And they bring out a shoe, put it on the table, and the shoes are literally sort of leaning inwards at about 45-degree angle. Half the midsole is gone. And I think I say, look, my friend, I think I know what the problem is.
Or the other side of it is they've actually worn through the rubbers on the heels, and they halfway through that midsole on the outside, and they can't understand why their calves are all of a sudden giving them all these injuries.
Yeah.
And things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a related note, have you found that the norm, as I have, that a lot of people, when they pick up an overuse injury, the first thing they blame is the shoes, when in actual fact, that 9 times out of 10, it's actually they've done too much mileage too quickly?
Yeah, it's as you say, you pick up an injury and you go, it's the shoe's fault. It's not that they don't look at their training, and like you say, either picked up the mileage too quickly, picked up the pace too quickly, just not having those rest days, not having a rest week. And so a lot of people do tend to look at the shoe and go, it's the shoe's fault. You've sold me the wrong shoe. And sometimes you get the physios and the bios going, no, you're in the wrong shoe. It's your shoe's fault. But the bios don't ask the questions as to, well, what's your training been? What's your build-up been? And things like that.
And in terms of the other shoes on the market, I mean, you nowadays have trail shoes and off-road shoes and triathlon shoes as well. So, I mean, I take it there's something there for everybody. Yeah,
look, in terms of that, you've got so many models, so many different varieties. As you say, you've got your trails, and within your trails, you've got a race day shoe, a training shoe, a technical shoe, a non-technical shoe. And, whether you like feeling the rocks under the foot, or whether you prefer not feeling the rocks, so you would have a bit more of a rock protection plating in the shoes, even to the point that they're now starting to make trail shoes with carbon plates in them. Carbon plates are different to the carbon plates in the road shoes, because on the trails, you don't want the shoe to throw you off the edge of the mountain. You want it to still have some sort of give and allow you to still adjust to things. So yeah, there's so much out there. And then, you've got your zero drop shoes, which is obviously no differential between heel and forefoot, but still with a decent stack underfoot. A foot shaped shoe, the ultras, for example, are nice foot shaped, nice big broad toe box, which some people love. So yeah, there's so many options out there, and it does make it difficult for the consumer when you start looking at it and going, where do I go? Where do I start? And that's where the likes of your specialist retailers tend to narrow the ranges down and have a good understanding of what's going to work, what's not going to work. So,
on a related note, I've always been quite what's the right word? Just happy about the fact that we have so many brands in this country to choose from. So, yes, as you say, it can make it a bit difficult to know where to start. But at the same time, as consumers, we've got a broad choice. Whereas back in the late 70s, early 80s in this country, there were basically 2 running shoe brands to choose from. So we've come a long way.
Yeah, we have. And I mean, I've just today, I was looking at 2 different brands showing me ranges for the future. And, even though we've got so many locally, there's so many more that are just not hitting the radar locally. So when you start looking at it and looking at the number of brands, obviously locally your established brands are like your ASICS, your New Balance, your Brooks, Saucony, Hoka's getting up there, Adidas, Nike. But then you've got some of the smaller ones who are making a big move back into the running industry with the likes of Puma, Ultra, as I say, which is a little bit more specialized. Joma, which everyone knows as a football brand, They make some great running shoes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are so many available.
Yeah. And I mean, now there's Olympic as well coming into the market, and even Mr. Price have got their own running shoes. So there's quite a wide range out there.
Yeah, and well, as you say, Olympic. There's another which is local. Another local brand, Pivot, is another up and coming, good value for money brand. So there are lots available. There really are lots available, and generally you should be able to find something within your price range across one of these brands.
Okay. Yeah. So then my last question for you is, if people want to come to your store and pick that brain of yours and your staff members in terms of finding the right shoe, where do they find you?
So as you said earlier, we are in Bedfordview. We do have our website is runninghigh.co.za. We're on Instagram at runninghigh.sa, Facebook. And in terms of our actual address, we in Van Buren Road at the Bedford Arcade. A good landmark is the Doppio Zero and the Indicio Pizzeria, which are right there by us.
Ironically, even though I'm from the Cape, I actually know exactly where that is. What a small world.
Sure, that could be because you visited the police station, which is across the road.
No comment. Actually, we used to have officers there, but okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Craig, thank you very much. As I said earlier, as somebody who's been reviewing shoes and as a runner myself, a lot of this information is now up here in my head, but to get somebody with all that expertise to explain it for beginners and people who might not understand all of it is invaluable. So thank you for your time for that. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that you're going to hopefully see a lot more people coming into the store saying, saw you online, so come and show me which shoes I want to run in now.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity, Sean.
No, thank you. Last but not least, folks, of course, we have to pay the bills. I just want to say a big, big, big thank you to Traumeel. As I say, your reliable running partner. That's their branding. But if you don't know the Traumeel brand, you get it in creams, gels, tablets, and drops. And it's all about inflammation. Inflammation is natural when you run, but having a natural medication that can alleviate the symptoms of inflammation is how you get back to running faster and more smoothly. So check out Traumeel at your local stockists, and of course, check out all the shoes at Running High in Bedfordview. Craig, thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure chatting to you, and to all our viewers and readers of Modern Athlete. We'll see you at our next MA Live, brought to you by Traumeel soon.